Welcome to Cord Killers Reckoning. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we're just trying to find out how to watch what we want, when we want, where we want, whatever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Where's the good stuff, Brian?
Oh my God, it's in my heart, Tom. That's why we showed up on a federal holiday. That's right. They may call it Labor, but what they don't realize is that it's not for the Labor Party in England. No, it's not so that you could sit there labor-free. Why would they call it Labor Day? It's so you can labor. Hooray for doing extra work. That's what I say. That's what happens when you're an independent creator supported by Patreon.
Labor Day, in praise of unions, of which we are not members, therefore we must work.
As we call it, International Scab Day. We'll do the job nobody wants. Guarantee.
Oh, Labor Day? I just call it International Scab Day. Wow. Yeah, I'm going to run that by my friend who's a union organizer, and he will 72% chance he laughs his ass off.
Well, okay. Non-zero chance there's a picket line in front of your house.
the very next day. All right. Well, our dear friend Amos is taking Labor Day off. He struck. He's on strike, so it's just me and Brian. Time for the supply run.
Supply run, supply run, supply run.
Mostly I wanted to make sure people knew Amos was off in case I screw something up. Don't blame Amos.
Subtle blame shifting. I like it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Ars Technica has a really interesting article up, one of these longer thinker pieces from Sharon Harding, who's been covering their cord cutting beat for a long time, called Your TV Set Has Become a Digital Billboard and It's Only Getting Worse. Rather than selling as many TVs as possible, she writes, brands like LG, Samsung, Roku, and Vizio are increasingly, if not primarily, seeking recurring revenue from already sold TVs via ad sales and tracking. So really bringing into focus in this article what we've kind of talked about here and there on the show from time to time, which is you pay a very low price for a television because they're going to make money off your data, and ads are showing up in more and more places in your TV operating system. She writes a huge part of tvOS revenue comes from selling ads. Group M, the world's largest media investment company, reported that smart TV ad revenue grew 20% from 2023 to this year and will grow another 20% to reach $46 billion next year. Patrick Horner, leader of consumer electronics at an analyst company called Omdia, reported that each new connected TV platform user generates around $5 per quarter in advertising revenue. So every month you use your television, you're making $5 for the company that owns that television. And, you know, that's not a lot for you to make, but it is, counting up when you've sold millions and millions of televisions. In fact, it's one of the reasons that Harding points out Walmart was willing to pay $2.3 billion to try to acquire Vizio, because Walmart wants to get into the advertising business, just like Amazon is.
Yeah. So I can't believe I've gone this long before I saw it, but I saw holiday themes come to my Roku on my Vizio. The three-letter one. What's the? I want to say TNA.
I want to say THC, but it's
it's not THC. It's not TNA. How do we forget which one it is?
Too much THC.
I saw holiday themes come to my Roku.
TCL.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my God.
Thank you, Unsafe DB Level and Ryan in Minneapolis for that.
That's how I remember it. But I believe only this last week or so, I saw for the very first time the advertisements, the heavy ads for Only Murders in the Building. Previously, I would see little tiny banner ads here and there, but this was this was like, if I just all I wanted to do was get my computer onto the screen. So I clicked settings and the whole background was themed around Only Murders in the Building. There was no way to turn on and off closed captioning. There was no way to select input source. There was no way to do anything without the majority of the screen being an ad for Only Murders in the Building. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, it's about time they took advantage of that latent bandwidth that's just sitting there. And I wasn't mad, but it hasn't gotten annoying yet. I haven't seen annoying, outrageous stuff. Just like at first, I thought it was smart to take the latent bandwidth of the idle 3 to 5 minutes that you're pumping gas into your thing and turned that into infotainment. But then the volumes got louder.
Yep.
And my gas pump now screams at me.
And the attainment got higher while the info got lower.
Yes. Well, and it's like it became physically I can't do this. I know it's illegal to leave your car unattended while it's filling with gas. It is now standard operating procedure, because I'll be good goddamned if I'm going to sit there and let this machine scream at me for 5 minutes.
I have noticed those have gone away in our neighborhood, and I'm not sure why. I think they're just broken, and I suspect maybe got broken and then no one wanted to fix them. I'm not exactly sure, because the screens are still there. They just don't play anything. That said, going back to the televisions, one of the many things that people get upset with advertisements about is that they're a cash grab. I paid for this television, and, I shouldn't have to be subjected to advertisements on top of it. What I would say in response to that, if I were a TV maker, is, sure, you paid for the television, but are you paying for the operating system to be continually maintained and updated? Not just to make it secure, but to make it work better, to add features, to optimize it, to add apps, to have a developer's platform and an API so that you can have a Netflix app for it. That all costs money. And you can either pay a subscription for those kinds of updates, or they can sell ads, or in some cases, they're going to try to do both, I think.
Well, and think about this. If a company, I love it when incentives align. And yes, it is annoying. In the case of gas stations, it truly was a one-time install it, and clearly nobody is maintaining it because they don't have a good return on investment for the ads. They were part of giant, nationwide campaigns where they're doing big dollar ad spends, and they don't really care. They just want a big number of impressions. If they do the ad stuff right, their incentives become aligned to where, because they own the platform, just like YouTube probably was not the most popular company in the room when they said to, let's say, Kraft or whatever, like, hey, we're only going to require that our viewers watch 5 whole seconds of your ads. After that, they could skip it. I would imagine the advertisers are like, well, I want them to watch the whole ad. I'm like, I bet you want them to spend a whole hour watching that one ad. We have no doubt you would like that very much. We're going to have, but we need to be the most popular option for video hosting, so we're going to only show 5 seconds and then let them skip. And if they do this right with your Rokus and TVs, your TCLs, and all that stuff, then they will be incentivized to also keep the ads non-intrusive.
And what's beautiful about all of this is you have a choice. When you buy a television, so far, there's only one television that makes it against the terms of service not to connect it to the internet. And that's the free one that we talked about from Telly, where the whole deal is they're giving you the television for free in order to sell your data. So you have to connect that one to the internet. You don't have to connect any of the rest of your televisions to the internet, in which case it's not really insecure to not update the operating system. Now, you're not going to get any added features, so your TV won't improve over time, but you then don't have to worry about ads. You also won't be able to use the television operating system for its apps. However, you've got lots of options of things you can plug into the TV, because I've seen multiple people, not just in chat, but also in emails, say, I would be willing to pay a little extra not to deal with ads. You can absolutely do that. Buy a cheap TV, don't connect it to the internet, and then buy an Apple TV or an NVIDIA Shield and connect that to the internet. The Apple TV doesn't have any ads on its interface at all. The NVIDIA Shield has very minimal ads. I think those ads are only through the Android system, and they're easily avoided.
This is where I'll be a little bit of a hypocrite, because I can't be bothered to practice what I preach, because really I just use my TV. I play everything on a desktop computer that's piped over to a television. But I strongly advocate for, if you're one of those people who don't mind spending a little extra, not only will by buying an external player of video give you the experience you want, the ad-free experience you want, but on top of that, we've talked about this before, televisions tend to upgrade in 7-year cycles, and 7 years those OSs get long in the tooth. They are under processor. They're underpowered. Whereas like every 2 years, you can replace your DVR or I don't even your set top box and put in something much faster that'll be much more to your liking.
Yeah. And then the TV operating system being slow won't really matter much. Now, it can happen that your TV operating system starts to get buggy if it's never connected to the internet. There just may be some glitch that happens and it turns out, that's a thing that can happen over a long period of time. We patched it, but you're going to have to connect it to the internet to patch it. But of course you can patch it and then just unconnected from the internet again. So there are lots of options if you're willing to do it to avoid this sort of thing. In the meantime, if you just don't want to mess with all of that, the price you pay is you're going to have to see some ads.
Oh, one more note on the incentives. Not only is the incentives aligned for the ads to be unobtrusive, but they also want to be able to confirm that they're delivered efficiency. So with the extra budget, not only, as you mentioned, Tom, will they be incentivized to do ongoing maintenance to keep everything going, but firmware updates, patches, stuff that makes, new codecs, all of that stuff can be automatically patched and installed. And like for example, every cycle that a new iPhone comes out, the new iOS comes out, and people blame that as like them bricking old phones. But truthfully, it's just like they want new cool things for the faster phones to use. But then what happens is yes, performance takes a hit on the older generations, but then because they're incentivized, they optimize all that code so it runs faster and faster and faster throughout the year till the next drop. Likewise, those incentives could align for televisions as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because a lot of times they are optimizing for the new platform and they're not testing at scale on the old platform. And that's why it's slow on the old platform, because they haven't been able to test at scale what's going to slow it down. And then they figure that out once it hits scale. And that's going to apply to televisions. It's going to apply to Roku sticks. It's going to apply to Fire TV, anything that has an operating system. Also, I think the chips are getting to a point in televisions where they're lasting longer. They're putting chips in that can handle the minimal operating system that you need to run a TV OS for longer. So you may find out that they don't get as slow over time as they did a few years ago, now that they've started to upgrade and put better chips in these things at lower prices even.
Yeah, man. Do you ever have to see any of these OS things, or are you just still in love with your Apple TV set-top box?
We generally use we have a Roku, an NVIDIA Shield, an Apple TV, and an LG is the television. So we use the Web OS on the LG. But I say we spend 98% of our time in the Apple TV, because you press the little arrow button on the Apple TV remote and it turns on the television and the speaker and then boots you right up in the Apple TV, and I never have to look at ads, and it has a little thing along the top that says, oh, here's the latest episode of Ginny's Kitchen and Only Murders in the Building, and like right when stuff comes out. So we end up not going to the other operating systems unless there's something I need to test in them. When I read about something, I'm like, oh, I better turn on the NVIDIA Shield and see how that works. Or if we need to travel and we're using the VPN to protect ourselves, I'll use the NVIDIA Shield TV, because there's a VPN app on the NVIDIA Shield TV that works really well.
How big a unit is it? A dongle unit or an actual external box? Or
the NVIDIA Shield? It's like a triangle little like set-top box thing.
It's small enough that you could throw it in a carry-on, no big deal.
Oh, yes, right. Because when I'm traveling, I would have to put it in a bag.
Sorry.
Right. So yes, the answer is yes, Brian.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I forgot about I forgot about how successful the boring.
That's why I'm using the VPN, is to protect myself while traveling. Hey, if you want to subsidize my jet setting lifestyle, Support us at patreon.com/cordkillers.
That's right. Not only will you get early access to the full experience, you'll get exclusive access to our super secret behind the bleachers pot smoking club. It's not a pot smoking club. I was trying to
With our THC televisions.
Yeah, we're watching THC televisions, our after talk segment where we reveal some behind the scenes stuff, and that's where Spoiler in Time lives. That's where we talk about the things that we're watching right now. And ooh boy, Tom, I cannot wait to tell you. I can't wait to spoiler you on what I've seen over this weekend. My goodness, I'll give a hint to it here in a bit. But in the meantime, you guys can either raise your pledge or to get all the goodies, or join us for what? Like, how much is it a month?
I don't know what it's going to be a month yet. They haven't given us the amount. Right now, it's $1 per episode still until November. So we'll let you know as soon as that changes.
Jump in now, man. Lock it in.
Yeah.
$1 a month at patreon.com. You get your /Cordkillers. You get your own RSS feed. It's super simple. You just copy it and you paste it in your podcatcher of choice. And then you have a special feed just for you.
Indeed. Go check it out. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Now on to the search party. Not a lot of new stuff to talk about this week, but a couple of interesting things. First of all, a new documentary called Super/Man. The slash is important because it's the Christopher Reeve story. Is coming to theaters.
Flashman. It was a
Super
thriller.
Slash Man. It's coming to theaters September 21st, and it is telling the story of Christopher Reeve and how he was cast as Superman, but then later was in an accident that paralyzed him, how he was unable to even get into a wheelchair at first, had to learn to speak again, all this stuff. And then began, not only his own return to doing things in public, but also advocating for other people who are mobility impaired like he is. So that is something that you can watch on September 21st. And I think they're going to do a return run September 25th, but it's not going to be continuing to be in theaters. It's kind of a one-time event. Even though it's from Warner, it's not like a Fandango event or something like that.
I would imagine that most of our audience is closer to our age, and in other words, we all lived this story in real time, so we probably did not engage with the enormity of his story all at once.
Yeah.
But if you're young and don't know the entire story, spoiler alert: there's not going to be a dry eye in the audience.
Seriously,
it is.
I had exactly that response watching this trailer where I knew everything. Nothing in this was a surprise, but seeing it all together like that really made me tear up. I'm like, damn, that was a hell of a story there with Christopher Reeve. So,
and especially what a tragic ending. I believe he and his wife died within 2 months of each other, her of cancer. And but it's going to be a rough ride, but I think a real special one. Also, a point of clarification, when I got confused. Super/Man was a documentary on O.J. Simpson. That's a line I stole from the chat.
Thank you, Unsafe DB Level, for that. Hall of Famer, you might say. Gyeonsung Creature is coming back to Netflix on September 27th. The hit Korean mystery series has a trailer as well. There weren't a lot of trailers this week, so I marked this one for you to watch. Did you watch it?
I did. I look forward to you explaining to me the conceit of the show.
So season 1 took place in Japanese-occupied Korea when Seoul was known as Gyeonsung. So the Gyeonsung creature is a creature from Seoul, but the Japanese are occupying the country towards the end of the war. So there's even some hints in the story of it seems like they're maybe pulling out. What's going on? But then we never see Japan actually leave. And there's a Japanese program to create monsters to help them win the war. So it's like genetic experiment kind of thing to turn people into monsters. That's season 1. At the end of season 1, there's a cliffhanger ending where one of the women who was marginally infected, but no one knew, is showing up in modern day Seoul And you're like, whoa, what's that about? How is she still alive? Was it because of the monster infection? And then she runs into one of the main characters from the 20s, but he does not appear to be the same person. He just looks like the same person. So you're like, oh, it must be a descendant. That's what season 2 is going to tell the story of, is who is this guy? Why does he look like the guy in the original, in the season 1? And of course, there's a mad scientist who wants to restart the program from the 20s and they have to stop him.
So this is same actor, different role?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah, his
you know
name
what?
is Gong Yu.
I rarely mind it when they do that. That kind of casting used to feel so gimmicky. Like, you know, when Michael Knight met Garth Knight, which was just David Hasselhoff with a goatee. But nowadays we've seen so many good examples of excellent acting, you know, like, I don't know, the Winklevoss twins come to mind from The Social Network. Like, I remember not being distracted at all because the performance was so good. So yeah.
Yeah, and of course the woman is the same character, so that's easy, right? Like, oh, it's same actress, same character. But Park Seo-joon is playing the guy, and there's a little mystery of like, well, wait a minute. Was he also infected and he just didn't tell her and he's actually the same person, or is he just a descendant who looks like him? And that Park Seo-joon, who plays that guy, also is a chef in Ginny's Kitchen, the show the cooking show I talked about. So that if you want to like see what he's like in real life, you can watch Ginny's Kitchen on Prime Video as well. The Netflix basketball series Starting Five, which follows 5 big, huge NBA stars: LeBron James, Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets, Anthony Edwards, Domantas Sabonis, and Jason Tatum, has been confirmed for an October 9th premiere. This is what we all thought Netflix's sports strategy might be before they went and signed a deal with the NFL. But it's them working very closely with the NBA to do like documentary style about some of their biggest players.
Is this going to be pretty close to the Formula One thing that they did in texture and tone?
Like Drive to Survive? I wonder if it'll be that style. It feels like it could be, where they're following these 5 huge stars through the season, the way Drive to Survive was following major drivers throughout the season. So yeah, I kind of feel like that's the idea.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to read the headline from Variety. The Rings of Power makes Lord of the Rings a boring slog in a lifeless season 2, TV review.
How much did Amazon pay for Lord of the Rings? Lord of the Rings. Let me get the answer from Bing. $465 million, Tom. They paid.
That's how much they paid for the rights?
Apparently.
That's not how much they paid to produce the show. That's just how much they paid to get it.
I know they paid that for the World Bible.
Oh my gosh!
Apparently they just hung up a sign that says "Want free merch?" right for the show. And then like, I don't know how they thought that they would just $500 million, Tom, $500 million, and that's before one word was written.
I have not started season 2 yet. I actually plan to at some point when, you know, I'm playing with the dog and don't need to pay close attention, because season 1, the critic review kind of jived with what I thought, which was way too long, got kind of better towards the end though, and gorgeous, just real pretty. I also had a few quibbles with characterizations of people we know from the movies, but you know, they were mild quibbles, nothing major there. It was just too long. And I'm like, at least in season 2, they can pick up the pace, right? And still be beautiful. But like, now that we've got the basis, get this story rolling. And what this review tells me is they slowed it down instead. They're like, whoa, Hoss, don't hold your horses. We're going to tell you more backstory first.
Is Amazon doing the week over week thing on this one? I guess.
Yeah, I believe they are. Yeah,
they've played back and forth with
because it takes a week to make it through an episode. So.
Oh my god, it's real time. It's like 72 hours of watching people walk, and then you hear someone go like, "Excuse me," and then you're like, "Ooh,
I need to pee."
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Norwegian slow TV productions in Middle Earth.
I'd almost prefer that. It just had some lo-fi beats going on, like, in
That
the
would be
background.
incredible to have like 10 unbroken hours of this actor, like
Of Galadriel walking through the forest from
and
one
then,
village to another.
maybe there's one part he tells a 5-minute story and it's like riveting.
We literally see the entire journey of the hobbits to Isengard in real time. Yeah, so there you go. You take that for what you think it's worth, everyone, while we go unearth some buried treasure.
Most people want to know why they suddenly got rich.
Buried treasure.
Brian, what have you been watching?
Do my best. You guys know me and spoilers. I have a hard time. If you're concerned about spoilers, the moment Brian Brushwood says, "I'm not going to spoil it," but ... run for the hills. Okay. So if you're, I'm going to do my best to not spoil anything.
I was going to comically mute you, but then I'm not sure if I can unmute you. So pretend I comically muted you right
Okay, good. So I'm going to tell you spoiler free, but let me instead place a bet. So we just now talked about like whether or not people are releasing stuff week over week, or if they release like 3 episodes at once or what have you. Chimp Crazy is a new show on HBO Max from the director of the documentarian director of Tiger King. And he had made several documentaries about exotic animals before. And then, but after Tiger King was a runaway success, the folks in the exotic animal world have become very secretive and very playing things close to their chest, to the tune where nobody previously, his superpower, along with being an excellent storyteller, is that he had access to that community and people would let him in, and that door had closed. So in order to do Chimp Crazy, which is about the trade of chimpanzees, he had to hire a proxy director, and he got somebody who would be able to get access that was plausible. He got a graduate of Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, Greatest Show on Earth, Clown College, who has spent 30 years touring with the circus, who is, he does children's birthday parties as a clown or whatever, who knows enough about production to be his proxy director. And it's that guy who everybody thinks is the director of the project, and they believe in him, and they believe that, because he's able to speak the language, because he's worked with cats and
so I'm imagining he goes in and is like, look, I know that I just want to tell a real story about this kind of pitch, right?
Right. And so there's this now the real director shows up in all of the other interviews where he doesn't need to pretend to be anything other but the guy who did Tiger King. But in the other case, when it comes to access, they have the proxy director. Let me just say, of note is there's a reason that HBO Max is doing this week over week. Last week or 2 weeks ago, the first episode premiered. There's a big, I'm sorry, what? At the end of episode 1, at the end of episode 2, which I finished yesterday afternoon, I was like, what? And then last night I watched episode 3, and it ended with this is going to be as big as Tiger King. Mark my words. That's when I emailed you, Tom, saying this is your one. I guess I texted you. I said, this is your one friend warning that that you could go in blind. This is going to be as big as Tiger King. It is at turns supremely hilarious. Like they do just enough over the top tension building, which allows, when something unexpected happened, that I burst out laughing multiple times. I was horrified and deeply uncomfortable at other times. It is excellent. It is excellent. So far, first 3 episodes have been excellent.
So when you said, but the thing is, because everybody knows he's Tiger King, I was going to joke at first And I'm not going to look at you even while I say this. I was going to joke. So he has to dress up like a chimp to get it done. But after you told me that description, I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe he does. So I don't rule anything out.
I will give you this non-spoiler. It happens in the first like 10 minutes. The opening shot is incredible. Like this director has such a flair. Like you can't just sit down any old place and get footage of this woman talking. Instead, he creates this incredible, the opening shot is this incredible pink on pink on pink thing. She's dressed in pink. They paint the walls of this room pink. They get 2 bunk beds that are made up in pink all over the place. And she sits there. She very clearly was directed to give a summary line of like the very first thing you hear is like, I love these chimps, and I will do anything to protect them. And then she holds the camera's gaze, I kid you not, for a full minute while credits roll. And during the credits rolling and all this pink on pink on pink, you see this baby chimp come crawling over on the bed and look right into camera. Like they just got that moment. And
oh my gosh. Yeah, that's great.
It's incredible. And then the next thing you see is you see a family sitting with a chimpanzee and they're watching the opening to 2001. And they're watching the chimpanzee go nuts for the chimpanzee on the screen, which is a human dressed as a chimpanzee. That's the first 7 minutes, and it's like I'm already in. And then on top of that, you get an extraordinary story that I quite simply am stunned they happen to be in the right place at the right time for. That's
amazing.
About as much as I could say.
So this is on Max.
Yes.
Go check it. And it's called Chimp Crazy, right?
Chimp Crazy. Just watch them first 3 episodes. And once and then lean over, pick up that jaw, put it right back up, and join me on the ride.
I want to mention something that Eileen and I watched because a lot of what we're watching right now are things we don't have to pay close attention to because we're messing around with the puppy while we're watching TV a lot. And so we were watching Pop Star Academy Cat's Eye on Netflix. It is I think it's an 8-episode documentary about the formation of a global girl group in Los Angeles. Geffen Records is putting this together, but it's using the Korean training style. So they're partnering with Hybe, a Korean label, to do this. They did a reality show online. They did fan voting. They put the group has already just put out their first single. And this Netflix documentary is telling the behind the scenes, like the stuff you didn't see on the reality show is in this documentary. So you might say, okay, so we're going to see a few, like this is them more at practice. And this is what happened in the dorms or whatever. And that's all true. The reason I thought it was notable is they spend a lot of time with the contestants that are eliminated. And the way it worked is the fan voting would protect people, but the executives would eliminate people. So when the executives eliminate someone, that someone has beef. They're like, well, why'd they pick me? You know? And the first person they eliminate is like one of the beloved members from everybody else that's in the contest. And they let her go off. They let her on camera and they used it in the documentary. Like, this was unfair. They shouldn't have done this. I'm upset. And didn't do what I would think they would do, which is, and then interview the executive going, well, this is why she doesn't know what she's talking. They didn't do that. They kind of let her have the last word, and they did it multiple times throughout the documentary. The other turn of events is that they didn't tell the trainees they were going to do a survival show like this at first. And so when they reveal that it's going to be a survival show, a bunch of them are upset, and they did the same thing. They let them air like, I don't know if I would have signed up for this if I knew this. This is unfair. It's not blah, blah, blah. And again, don't give a like, well, here's why they're wrong. Let them have the last word. I thought that was a really interesting way of doing it, because this is created by the record label that's putting this out. So they're really leaning into the authenticity thing here, knowing like, well, if we don't show this, somebody on social media is going to talk about, that we hid it. So we might as well put it in there.
There's an emerging sensibility as we get a increasingly sophisticated audience for this stuff. Where I read in The Power of Glamour by Virginia Postrel a version of the sentiment that glamour exists in the shadows. That's where you get to project yourself, and that's part of the reason that pop sensations of the 1960s, it was a closely guarded secret just how fake everything was, and that they were lip syncing, whatever. And then even into the late 90s, there were lip syncing controversies. Whereas now, I think that the fan bases are so nuanced. In a world where you get smart marks watching pro wrestling who know, like they get to decide how deep in the rabbit hole they get, and people are figuring out that having people know everything about everything takes nothing away from the final project. In the end, people self-select for how deep in the rabbit hole they want to go, and it's interesting to see more and more projects just put it out in plain daylight, where it's like there are no gotchas when everything is out in the sunshine.
Now, granted, there's probably stuff that didn't make it in here that people who were involved would be like, well, what one thing they did leave out was X, Y, or Z, I'm sure. But yeah, I thought it was interesting, not so much in like, they're unassailable because they did this, but like, just what you were saying just now, like we have progressed to the point where it's not worth hiding that stuff. In fact, it's better to lean right into it. Again, that's Popstar Academy Cat's Eye on Netflix. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com. Before we move on, Brian, do you have a project in the works?
I do.
Yeah.
It's a big one. It's a very big one. And it's not ready to announce yet. In fact, I don't know if you've seen it yet, Tom. I may share it with you after we stop being on the stream. But the hopefully we'll announce either late this week or early next week. So I'll announce it next week. But in the meantime,
what is it?
Get on both of our email lists. That's some good journalism, Tom. You almost this is real Frost Nixon happening right now.
It almost worked, doesn't
it? In the meantime, I think we can both co-sign on sign up for our email lists. Head on over to Free Tom Newsletter, or for me, just go to gimme.scamstuff.com and sign up for a free giveaway. And every week we add those emails to my list. And then you'll be first to hear about it. It's a time-sensitive project. I'll say it's a Kickstarter. And the importance of Kickstarter is on day one, you kind of have to blow past your goal in order to keep that momentum. Other than that, it's very difficult to climb up afterwards. So please sign up on both of our email lists.
Go check it out, folks. Let's scan the horizon.
Send a scanning crew aboard.
Scanning the horizon!
We have a lot about ESPN in the Scanning the Horizon this week, starting with the Universal Guide for Streaming Sports Where to Watch showing up on ESPN.com and in the ESPN app. Where to Watch has data from more than 250 streaming services. So this has got the World Surfing League in it, right? It's not just got TNT and Fubo and all of that. It's got everywhere they could find that has streaming sports. So most of it is not a Disney property. And you can also set the feature to only show games on services you subscribe to. So kind of like Just Watch, where, you can say, show me when it's available on the stuff I have. It's that for sports. Kind of smart for ESPN to do that, because it's going to get more people to come to ESPN.com and use the ESPN app.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where incentives align. Like, for example, I think back in the early aughts, Progressive unveiled their price tool, and it's like they made a big deal about how sometimes we're not the lowest, and that's a smart thing to do because you're going to want to build up trust. And in this case, I'm certain that in some room, it's like we have two choices: we can either wait and Just Watch will do it, or we could do it right now, and we could build a reputation for being in love with sports, whether or not you watch it on our platform or not.
Yeah. And I think it's an acknowledgement that ESPN, I'm not trying to say they haven't acknowledged this and this is the time they did, but it is further evidence that they acknowledge that ESPN isn't a cable channel. ESPN is sports news service. They will try their best to give you the actual game, and they will try their best to give you the actual news, and they will try their best to give you the information on how to watch and attend the sports. So it makes sense that as an information service, it's not like SportsCenter only covers the sports that were on ESPN that night. They tell you about all the sports. So this kind of follows, right?
I would imagine that baked into this service would also be an easy, like, let's say you searched for, Surfing World Championship or something, and you found an obscure streaming service that is covering an entire thing. My guess is because ESPN is also a popular sports news site, that's an easy way for them to say, hey, do you want all the latest news on this? Sign up and get the article.
Yeah, exactly. Add that to your feed and all of that sort of thing. One place you will not be able to watch ESPN is DirecTV, including DirecTV Stream. A carriage agreement, a good old-fashioned carriage agreement dispute has ended. So there is no ESPN, no ABC, no Disney Channel on DirecTV. Instead, you get a message saying Disney has not renewed its deal, and go to this website so you learn more and complain. DirecTV says Disney won't let it offer flexible packages, and that Disney wants it to waive its rights to claim anti-competitive behavior. Disney says, we'd love to give flexible packages. DirecTV just isn't going to pay us enough. We want a fair rate for our channels. So, pretty much the usual carriage agreement dispute, it sounds like. Last time ESPN had a dispute, I think it was with Charter, and it lasted, 12 days, something like that, if I'm remembering right.
Dude, time is a flat circle, and I'm this close to renaming the show again to Sisyphus, the podcast.
The difference this time, Brian, is this affects me, okay? I have DirecTV Stream. So I went and looked, and it's like, oh yeah, it still gives you the grid with all of their shows. But when you click in, it just gives you the black screen that says Disney hasn't renewed their deal, so we can't show you this. Disney, Warner Brothers, Discovery, and Fox would like to provide you an alternative to DirecTV to get ESPN online called Venue. But remember that Fubo successfully got an injunction against them launching Venue because of Fubo's lawsuit saying it's anti-competitive for them to do that. I wonder why Disney doesn't want DirecTV to be able to sue for anti-competitive. The appeal was made by Venue in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit 10 days after the injunction to say, we don't think this injunction should stand. So they are trying to convince a higher court to throw out the lower court's injunction. We'll see if that happens. A digital joint venture formed between MSG Networks, that is Madison Square Garden. That is not like a food additive network.
Spoiler alert, Madison Square Garden is more dangerous to you than the food.
Probably. Certainly less tasty. A digital joint venture formed between MSG Networks and Yes Network earlier this year will launch a streaming sports hub called the Gotham Sports app. Prior to the launch of the regular season of the NHL and NBA, that app will house each company's mobile app on a single platform. So in other words, it will be MSG and Yes Network content, so you can watch the Knicks, the Rangers, the Devils, the Islanders, the Buffalo Sabres, the Brooklyn Nets, the New York Yankees, all in one app. Customers without a traditional cable subscription can also purchase Yes or MSG through the Gotham app. So you can either log in with your cable subscription or buy it a la carte. There is a combination Gotham sports package that will include an offering from both services at a slight discount.
That's remarkable to just sort of close your eyes and process just how many people are in the greater New York City area. Yeah. Like people for whom Madison Square Garden is a place they go many times. Like I've never been there, but it's a real place to them, and they do want to keep up with all of the content from there. And the fact that they can justify, an entire network and app and all of that stuff for essentially local sports is like, that's what happens when your city gets big enough. I guess.
So the Mets aren't part of this because the Mets have their own service. And it's got the Islanders, it's got the Devils, it's got the Rangers, so it's got all, and the Sabres. So it's got the major hockey teams. It's got both the NBA teams, no NFL in this as well. And of course, as we all know, Major League Soccer is all in Apple TV Plus. Hey, remember when we had that great conversation about Bronfman coming in at the last minute? And
What was it? 20 minutes after we shut down the stream?
Literally 20 minutes or less after we finished Cord Killers last week, Paramount said, Bronfman withdrew his offer, so the go shop period has concluded, and it looks like Skydance will take control of Paramount, as we had expected. So there you go. Finally, you found this article on Wall Street Journal about using South Korea as a testing ground for making dubs better. In other words, providing classes to the voice actors. I mean, you always hire voice actors. There's a great documentary came out years ago about the voice actors that often get associated with major actors. Like there are Turkish voiceover actors that always do George Clooney, no matter what movie he's in, right? They're the voice of George Clooney in every movie. So there's a lot that goes into being a voice actor for a dub. This article that you found, Brian, tells how Netflix is taking that to the next level by giving the voice actors cultural classes to say, here are some things you should know about Korean dramas that will inform your performances so they come off sounding more legitimate.
Yeah, there's if you're an actor who's hired for a gig and you're just handed a script, you read the script and you probably do it to the best of your ability using your own cultural identity. And in this case, it's like, okay, when it says little brother, it doesn't mean it like the way you're saying it. And then it informs them and gives them significant nuance. And that is everything from the culture to I wonder how soon we're going to see just a little bit of AI lip syncing so that truly the dubs are indistinguishable from just a movie that takes.
Oh yeah. No, it's a great idea to be like you want to your intonation of the English is going to change the meaning. So you want your intonation to be the way it would be said in Korean, but in English. And this is a template that Netflix is setting because K-dramas are so popular to apply to Latino dramas, Spanish language dubs, French dubs, and other languages around the world as well.
And to be honest, it's really great that we live almost unimaginably, as somebody who got into anime in the late 80s with Akira and so on, to live in such a international culture sphere and to see just increasingly, on the one hand, the world's getting smaller by the minute, but it's really neat that it's no longer shocker that the number one show would be an import from South Korea.
Yeah, right. Let's move on to what you're saying to us in the chat room.
You've got mail.
Hey, Killers fam. I was in Los Angeles last week for an extended vacation that included Disneyland and a Warner Brothers studio tour. This led me to think that Warner Brothers is probably the only studio that can give Disney a run for their money on pure pop culture IP. A case could be made that they even have more variety than Disney, but they have squandered it all and haven't made much of it and are still struggling to stand out like Disney does. This should probably be studied in some management class on how you could bungle this much potential over this many years, as this is not just what David Zaslav has done, but has been doing for quite some time.
Well, there was a significant amount of time as they were figuring out, back in the days when there were 4 different HBOs, Go, Max, traditional, etc. Like I remember looking at the offerings when they were adding so much Warner Brothers content to that vertical. I remember just loudly proclaiming that it should just be WB streaming because it was a blank slate and didn't already mean something the way HBO did. But that seems like I don't know. I mean, HBO Max seems to be working out okay, and Warner Brothers seems to be doing okay. I'm less in the business of telling them what to do now.
I also think if you took a Paramount Studios tour or a NBC Universal studio tour, that you would affect this opinion. I don't even know if it would change it, but you might realize, oh crap, yeah, Paramount has a lot of IP as well. I think all of these companies have more IP than we think, honestly, and could do a lot more with them. I think what this shows is not to me, and again, maybe I'm just saying the glass is half full, not half empty, but to me, it doesn't say that Warner Brothers has bungled stuff so much as it says, wow, Disney's really good at this. Like Disney does a good job of collecting IP, acquiring IP, and managing IP. They're not perfect, but they do a really good job with it. Ander writes in, hello, friends. Hello, Ander. Where did you get this soundbite for the scanning the horizon section? We do a lot of scanning at work, and whenever someone says the word, I yell in my best imitation of this voice, scanning the horizon. I keep meaning to ask, but I only think about it when I'm driving, listening to the podcast. Thank you all. I've really been appreciating the added benefits of my Patreon subscription. Oh, thanks, Ander.
Fantastic. Anders, a longtime friend of the show, and I actually don't know where that clip came from, but I bet somebody listening does. So hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com along with your thoughtful segments.
Yes, Bryce. Email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. And finally, Ryan says, Brian and Tom, Coupling 2000, the UK version only. The NBC one is a word-for-word, scene-for-scene rip that flopped badly, where The Office succeeded, Coupling failed. And then there's the list I sent to Tom over Discord a few days ago of worst series finales compared to the average rating of the show's run. That was a fascinating list, Ryan. Thanks for sending that.
Yeah, and this, of course, is in regards to our full experience, first, ultimate, lowest, and last. We're always on the lookout for other shows to add to our list, cordkillers@gmail.com.
Indeed, indeed. Thanks, everybody, for supporting us at patreon.com/cordkillers. Lots of good stuff coming there now because Amos has really been kind of looking at what's there and making sure that you get extra stuff. So now is the best time ever to support us at patreon.com/cordkillers. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we're live at twitch.tv/Night Attack, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.